Hey everybody, it's Paul.
And Steve.
And we are back to discuss it all. Now before we get started with today's topic, I want to let you know, if you enjoy today's video, please make sure to leave a thumbs up for it. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and share the video with your friends if you think they might enjoy it. Now today's topic is going to be pretty awesome.
It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
So a lot of what we talk about is pop culture. Today we're going to be talking about technology.
Cool.
And so today's video is the 5 life-changing tech inventions in our lives.
This is going to be awesome. Now, this was a little bit of a difficult one
It was.
for me to figure out and to kind of narrow down.
Yep.
And I think we're going to have a lot of duplication on this list.
I would imagine so. I mean,
Yeah.
we lived during a period of time where the vast majority of tech advance has taken place in the last 40 or 50 years. And
Yeah.
so we've seen a lot of things happen. So in a sense, there's so many technological advances, but which are the ones that changed our lives personally?
Yeah.
So which ones really affected us directly with what we do now or what we have done because of technology?
Absolutely.
So,
all right. Do you want to go first, or do you
why
want
don't you go first?
Okay.
I'm really, you're Mr. Tech. I mean, you're like Napoleon Dynamite's brother, right? So you're Kid and the technology. You are Mr. Technology. So I'm really interested to hear.
I think you got me wrong on that. I think we're going to have a lot more fun with it. Now, this is going to be a spoiler alert. We are going to do a video coming up very shortly where it's going to be technology that we love, but we also kind of hate.
That's right. What do we love to hate? But
Yeah.
it's the interesting thing about this is that we don't talk about these before we come. So we don't know what each other is going to say. It's really spontaneous. So I'm excited to hear what your technological change, life-changing technology is.
All right. So for me, I think I'm going to have to start at the beginning. And for me, that's going to be with the Atari 2600.
Yes.
So a video game that was the first video game console that came into our house, first of many in my lifetime. But I'd been exposed to video games like put a quarter in and play, and I mean that was literally like a minute or 3 at the most of entertainment for what was a lot of money for me at the time.
That's right.
But I was just fascinated with video games.
Mm-hmm.
I loved them, and the idea that that I had a system in my house that I could play was for me life-changing. Maybe not so much in a good way. I didn't spend nearly as much time outside as I did prior to that. But it did kind of spark something within me that I loved. I love the stories that were told through these games, because almost all the games had a story.
That's right.
There were a few that really didn't, like the tank battle game. It was just
They shoot at each other. The little square.
It was a simple story, but it was a story nonetheless. But the games that I really liked were like Pitfall, Adventure, things that were a little bit more complex, a little bit more fantasy-oriented, maybe even mirrored movies of the time. Not E.T. Didn't like E.T.
Didn't like that. No, but what a good game.
But the idea that I could play the game as much as I wanted without having to shove a quarter into it really kind of, and it changed my TV set from a passive, I'm sitting here and I'm watching whatever they're putting on. Now all of a sudden I'm getting to have input into it. So for me that changed things, and that because it was the first is going to make the list.
No, and that certainly would be on my list as well. I can remember the Christmas that we got the Atari 2600. We got a little TV that went with it. It was a small little TV that you plugged into the back, and in fact, you didn't even plug in. You connected it to the antenna connection, and a handful of games. And I just remember playing that over and over and over with my little brother, with my friends, and the friend down the street got the Intellivision. Which the graphics were a little better on the Intellivision, so I liked playing baseball and football on that one. But on the Atari, the tank game was good. But Frogger, Asteroids was my favorite game. What was your favorite game on Atari 2600?
So it's funny. So I'm glad you mentioned this. I remember the Christmas as well, and actually that was the Christmas that I transitioned out of Star Wars figures and into video games, because I remember getting the AT-AT. We got the Atari and then one game.
Oh, right.
And the game was Kaboom, which was not a good game.
No.
In fact, the cartridge we got didn't work, so we had to take that back and exchange it. But I had the choice. I had the AT-AT in my hand, which was my favorite Star Wars vehicle, and I decided to exchange it for the Asteroids
Is that
game.
right? Yeah.
And I played that game far more than I would have played with the AT-AT.
Oh, yeah.
I still love the AT-AT.
Yeah, right.
But yeah. So I'm sorry.
What was your favorite game?
My favorite
for the Atari 2600?
That would say it would have
I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, it'd have to be a toss-up between Asteroid and Yar's Revenge.
Oh, love Yar's Revenge.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think mine would be one of those two as well. I mean, I enjoyed Frogger and some of the other ones, but I'd forgotten about Yar's Revenge.
And the thing is, I mean, the Atari 2600 at the time, because it's what we had, we felt very drawn into the game. Yeah. But the graphics were very rudimentary.
No, without a doubt.
You really had to use your imagination. To kind of get what it was. And the sports games for me were horrible.
It's awful.
And I just didn't understand a lot of the complexities of the sports games at the time. But Asteroid and Yar's Revenge both worked with that graphics that you had. You could understand what was going on and what you had to do. And so I think that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, good.
I would probably say Yar's Revenge might be my favorite.
Good.
But Asteroid I probably played more because I got it sooner.
Right, I got you. No, good. That's a great, and certainly life-changing.
Yeah.
So the first life-changing technology that I'll mention is the Tandy TRS-80 color computer. So it was the first PC personal computer that I had.
Okay.
And it plugged into that same TV that the Atari had been on a few years before. And I remember at the library they had the Apple II computer. Oh. And so you'd go down to the library and you'd kind of do some things, but you had to sign in of how you'd get half an hour at a time, and people would be lined up at the local public library. And so my dad bought us the color computer, which was revolutionary for me. Revolutionized my way of thinking, nearly revolutionized my life, because I really got into computer programming on the TRS-80 color computer, programming in BASIC and learning loops and all that sort of thing. At the time, when we first got it, you loaded the programs from a cassette tape.
Yep.
So there was a cassette tape player that would plug into the computer, and you'd load the game. Every time you wanted to do something, you had to load the game. It was it was just at the time, initially at least, it was simply no graphics user interface at all.
Right.
So,
yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the home computer. That was on my list as well. Now, for me, it was the Commodore 64.
Right. Okay.
And my grandparents, but it was my grandparents. They bought me that computer. Which was a fabulous gift. They bought me a disk drive, so I had a floppy drive. Which was, that was high power.
That's exactly right.
And I was programming in BASIC. I got a subscription to Popular Computing or some magazine, which were these terribly complex programs.
Oh yeah.
At any time, none of the programs ever worked that I tried to copy from the thing. So I was making up my own stuff. Yeah. But I just love the idea of the computer. Mm-hmm. It really did help me out, because I really saw a split in people that I hung around with, in my friends. Growing up until we were, maybe 6-7 years old, computers weren't in anybody's house.
No. Mm-hmm.
And everybody was kind of interested in sports and doing stuff outside. And then it was myself and one other person got a computer. Mm-hmm. And that really kind of created, we ended up staying inside and doing computer stuff. Yeah. We still did stuff outside.
Sure.
But I really saw us end up having a big advantage.
Yeah.
No doubt. And even to this day, just my comfort with computers stuff is not nearly so much as as the kids coming up today.
Oh,
I mean, ashamed just because I've really kind of lost touch with what's out there.
Right.
But definitely life changing.
Yeah, love that. In fact, I enjoyed Dungeons and Dragons as well.
Oh yeah.
And so what I decided to do is I would program a Dungeons and Dragons game, and so I started writing the code for it, and then I sent a letter to whoever published Dungeons and Dragons at the time. Yeah, TSR, and said, "Hey, I'm writing this computer program. Would you like it? Would you like me to do this for you?" And I was probably 10 years old, 12 years old, or whatever it was. And a lawyer sent back a cease and desist letter and scared me to death. And I don't think I programmed much at all after that. But I even remember going to the mall, into the Radio Shack where they were selling this, and writing a little program on the demo where somebody could push through and I love you, and letters all over the screen and that sort of thing. But anyway, that was certainly life changing.
Those early computers were a lot of fun, but no graphic interface. No. You had to learn how to do BASIC.
That's right.
Or something else. Just really neat.
Yeah.
Okay. So my next one is going to be, we talk a lot about movies and about TV, but movies especially. So the VCR, but I'm not going to say the VCR. It's actually going to be the video rental store.
Oh, yeah, right.
Where I remember the ritual of going to the store, and our local store chain was Errol's, EROLS.
Okay.
And there were several locations around Baltimore. They were the biggest. They probably were the best video rental store, and they just had so many titles.
Yeah.
So many weird movies and stuff. And I remember loving to go to the horror section. I was scared of the movies, but I like to see the cover.
That's
and the title, read the description, because it was like reading a ghost story.
Sure.
Like every one of them sounded cool. And now I can stream all those on, on whatever. And they're all just terrible.
Yeah.
They're just terrible.
But I think it worked back then because they knew you had driven 15 minutes and rented them, paid somebody and taken it, and you were going to have to rewind it later. So you watched it.
You were, you'd already rented it.
You're all in.
And it was entertainment. I mean, it was like the Atari 2600 graphics. So it was like, okay, this isn't great, but it's what I got.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So the video rental store, that really made movies accessible.
Yeah.
Because until then, I don't know if you had this or you remember this, but I remember number one, our movie screens were it was the theater had one screen.
Yeah.
But they would get new movies, but they would do re-releases of hit movies. So I remember like a re-release of all the Star Wars movies coming back to see again. I remember Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Basically, apparently anything George Lucas or Steven Spielberg.
It was coming back out a second time.
But Gone with the Wind replayed in the theater. A lot of those came back, and so that was always fun. But there was no movies on demand.
Right.
And all of a sudden, VHS was kind of like a movie on demand.
Yeah. No, that's a great technological advance, and certainly life changing.
Yeah.
And opened the way for streaming rentals.
Yep.
Even today. So no, great. That's a great pick. All right. So I'm going to go with one that that changed certainly the way in which I consumed television, and that was cable television. Mm-hmm. So I was probably it may have been 5th grade or 6th grade when cable television came to our town and to our community.
Okay.
And until then, all you had was broadcast television, where you'd set up an antenna, and my dad had this massive antenna that he put up so he could get maybe one extra channel. So I think we got 5 instead of 4 or whatever it was. Yeah, the 3 networks and PBS.
Yeah.
And you would find it. The television had the knobs that turned, and you would get to your channel that way. But when cable television came, and you had a big box that was set up on top of your TV
with a spinny dial.
With a spinny dial, it changed the way that you thought about television because you had options then. And I think that not only changed the way that television was made and distributed. Since you had a lot of different options, you had to make really good shows. It wasn't, well, we're just competing with 2 others. You're competing with everybody. But also as a consumer, then you can almost have niche, and maybe this is not so good that became this, but you can really become niche in your television watching. It's if I really like this type of show now on cable television, I can have that. But the biggest positive that came from cable television for me was watching sports. Now you had TBS showing the Braves, and you had WGN showing the Cubs, and I never would have watched the Braves or the Cubs. You had to wait for the one game of the week that would come on. So that was certainly changed my life as a late elementary, junior high school kid, and the TV viewing habits and that sort of thing. So.
That's a great one. So we ended up getting cable a little bit later. I probably was in high school when we got cable at my house, but my friend had cable right around the same time you were talking about, around the same age. And so I remember going there, and all of a sudden, it was like the world opened up.
Yeah.
Before that, though, it really was going down to the video store just to get some other option. Because you're right. It was the 3 network options, plus we had one like VHF option, and then PBS.
That's right.
And and that was it. And I remember Wide World of Sports.
Of course, that's right.
So you're right. Cable really did change sports.
Yeah, no doubt.
More so, I would say sports and music, more so than anything else for me at that time.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
All right. So my next one, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna jump forward. We're gonna stick with the content kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be now the ability to stream content.
Oh, yeah.
So we've kind of gone from the idea of having to go physically and pick up, content in the form of a VHS cassette or a DVD or something, to having the options, via cable coming in. Now you've got a lot more options. To now you've kind of got infinite options.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt.
Through the different streaming services that are streaming, not only movies but now TV.
Yeah.
You can get the reruns of things.
Right.
It's just, now we have so much choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, if a video console kept me in the house a little bit of time, and now the personal computer kept me in a little bit more because now I'm creating things.
That's right.
Right. Streaming will just keep me in all the time.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And with that comes the different way that you think about your content, where you don't have channels anymore, you have apps. And so in our home, with our kids, they only think of TV really in terms of apps. So I'm gonna download whatever app it is and watch whatever program I want on the app. My wife is the opposite extreme, where if it's not, where she can turn on the guide and go down to the show that she's watching and watch it live. Maybe record to DVR, but outside of that, and I'm kind of in between.
Okay.
But that changes with streaming. It changes even the way that you think about what a television program is. Now it's just these episodes, you can sit down and binge watch them. So.
Oh yeah, and I certainly have binge watched my fair share of episodes. That'd be a great series for us, binge-worthy TV shows.
Absolutely. No, you're exactly right.
So streaming content has. I think that's changed. That's changed everything.
Yeah, no doubt. That's good.
That's
a great one.
And I feel like there's also upped the quality.
Yeah.
Because a lot of we've talked before. A lot of the shows that that we kind of grew up with, they just don't really stand up. And it's not because the stories weren't good. It's just because. They just were what they were. They were only competing with so many people.
Well, and let's be honest, competition, tends to increase the quality.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's good.
All right. So streaming.
I think it's great. All right. So along with kind of almost a streaming, I'm going to say that one of the technological advances that really changed my life was Napster.
Ooh, okay.
Napster and LimeWire, and that is the music sharing that went on for a while, kind of illegally, and all the way to Congress, with whether this was fair use or not fair use, and gave way to the Spotify and Apple TV, or excuse me, Apple Music and Amazon Music. These streaming services for songs, they really found their beginning. I remember on dial-up with Napster, just sitting for hours on end to download songs from the 80s that I didn't even have the cassette tape any longer. I lost it in some way, and just lining them up and just for hours on end breaking the law, downloading those things.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah, I remember dial-up. It's kind of a soothing sound, like that connecting to the thing. And it's interesting you talk about the file sharing. Now, I don't know what you guys think about all this. And really, we're kind of beyond it.
Right. That's right.
But file sharing has been around in one form or another since the beginning of really anything.
Right.
Because I don't know about you, but back when we were doing the cassette tapes, one of the greatest things in the world was the people that had the dual cassette decks.
That's right.
And could play one and record on the other. And then of course you had the high speed dubbing, where you only had to wait 1/3 of the time to get it. So I remember going to the record store with a friend of mine, and it was like we each had $10, and it was like, okay, we want the new Poison album, and we want the new Motley Crue album.
That's right.
Okay, which one are you going to buy?
That's right. And then you copy for your friend.
Yeah, that's what you do.
100%.
So that was the low tech analog version of file sharing.
That's right.
But it was the exact same thing.
Absolutely.
And as long as you weren't standing on a street corner in New York trying to sell it,
that's right.
Nobody cared.
Yeah, and I think that was the argument that Napster made for and LimeWire made for we're just doing what everybody has done. It's just a high tech version of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I understand both sides of it, and I really, depending on the day, I don't know where I come down on.
I know, that's right. And certainly the laws weren't, they weren't made in the day and age of the internet where you could download things.
Right.
And so, but that was big for me. I don't know how many songs I ended up downloading. I don't know where they are now, but at one point I had hard drive full of songs that I had downloaded from Napster and LimeWire. So that was a big one for me.
Yeah. So and that is life changing. I mean, for all of us, because of course now we do have Apple and Spotify and just all these different services that came out as a result of that.
Yeah,
which were good. So I feel like we kind of jumped around a little bit. So I'm going to go back a little bit, and we're going to talk about the internet.
Oh yeah, okay.
So the internet's going to be my fourth pick because of course that's what enables all these things.
All that to happen.
When we moved from analog to digital, we needed a medium to do that. And I remember with the Commodore 64 getting my first modem because my cousin had a modem. He kind of showed me this. It was called a BBS, bulletin board system.
Oh, absolutely.
Where he'd log in, and of course he had a friend who was hosting it. I mean, it was the coolest thing to me.
That's right.
That that I at my house could dial up this other guy who had this bulletin board system, and then see like all these files. And of course we were file sharing little video games and stuff. And some were just homemade, or some maybe were the actual program. I don't know. I don't really remember that all that well. But it was just so cool and so much fun because it was a message board. People would post messages. It was kind of like the early version of Facebook with no graphics. It was all text. That's right. And I remember the dial-up. And then, of course, there was multiple phone lines in the house. So if somebody picked up while you were downloading something, it was gone.
It was over. Absolutely. Well, so my dad added a phone line to our house and ran a BBS.
Oh, wow.
He was really into computers and had a computer company for a while. And so he ran his own BBS, ran it on OS 9, which was the Tandy operating system that was really better than Windows and OS 2 that came out from IBM and that sort of thing. But I remember him hosting this, and people were always calling in and dialing in and connecting to these chat rooms to talk about primarily the color computer. So it was run on that TRS-80 color computer. So the Cocoa Club, they called it. And people were involved, and there were people all over the country that would log into this BBS and talk about personal computers.
That's really cool. Yeah. I think the BBSs that I was on was just like local kids doing stuff, and of course on the message boards there was always the flame wars.
Of course, yeah, that's right.
So so the internet obviously is probably the biggest life-changing tech for all of us that are watching this right now. But I mean, we were there kind of at the beginning.
We were there at the beginning. Yeah, when Al Gore invented it.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like you and I, like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates.
No doubt. I'm all over that. I'm at the beginning, in the garage.
Yeah, so I love that. All right, so that's me, my fourth pick, the internet.
So and which is fabulous and no doubt life changing. So I'm going to go, and it's kind of 2 in 1, and that is I'm going to start with it being cordless telephones.
Yes.
So that was for me and for my family and for my kids. That was a really life changing transition. The first time that we were freed up from having to be connected to the phone. And that it just leads to mobile phones. I mean, I don't even have a landline at my house any longer. So, but the mobile phone or the cell phone just becomes an extension of the freedom that you get when you no longer have this cord. And so the mobile phone, the cordless phone that had this long antenna, you had to pull the antenna up, and it would probably only last about 7 minutes before you charge it back up again. This giant base, giant phone that you had. But being able to be cordless meant for me as a late early teenager that now I could talk to my friends and I could talk to girls on the phone without having to stand in the kitchen where my family was listening in. So that definitely was a game changer, and I remember those phones. You kind of felt like Gordon Gekko, like you're doing like business. That's right. Yes.
Sell 50 IBM at market.
Absolutely, you felt pretty powerful.
And I remember those long antennas and like walking like under a door.
That's right.
Whacking. And the parent, don't dent the antenna.
Don't break it.
So the cordless phones definitely did pave the way for the cell phones, which of course paved the way for the smartphones. That's a great one. So I'm gonna end my list with probably an extension of what we've been talking about, content in the internet, and that's gonna be YouTube.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I feel like YouTube deserves its own category, just because to me it's one of the biggest game changers out there. Yeah. YouTube is I don't know. I don't have the stats, but the amount of content available on YouTube, and again, just the amount of specificity you can get. And I've heard somebody describe it now, and I think they're right, as it has basically become the world's university. Because you can get easily a college level education with the content that that you get. Maybe not on this channel. Even though Steve is a professor.
Yeah, that's right. So don't sell us too short.
That's right.
You could get a college education.
You get half a degree. Get you half a certification here. But yeah, really, just from the educational thing, I learned how to fix things around the house. I've been able to find content that has been lost. Talking about like going back and seeing commercials that we haven't seen or shows that we haven't seen in a long time. My horizons have been so expanded by the level of discussion and for me learning and stuff that's available on YouTube that it's just amazing, as well as just all the entertainment possibilities.
No, that's exactly
as well.
I don't remember how we learned to do stuff before YouTube, because if I have something that goes wrong in the house or with a car or whatever, the first thing I do is go to YouTube. And usually find, in fact, like 100% of the time, find what I need to be doing.
It's wild.
I don't know what I did before that.
It's wild.
So you're exactly right. And there may not be any more life-changing tech, but again, technology always builds on technology. So if you didn't have the internet, you wouldn't have this. If you didn't have personal computers, you wouldn't. So they all build up, together. But without a doubt, life-changing. Life-changing. So all right. So I'm going to go with one more kind of online tech. Transformation that has been life-changing for me and for a lot of other people, and that's Amazon.
Oh yeah.
So Amazon, not just clearly in selling books, but now that Amazon has become the behemoth that Amazon has, it's almost again, it's like YouTube, where you go to YouTube in order to learn something or for entertainment. For Amazon now, it's if I want to buy something, it's there. I can speak into the Alexa, I can pull up my phone, and in at most 2 days, there are many things that I can have today. I can order some things right now and have it here in a couple of hours. And Amazon has just changed the way that, for me, I think about shopping. Amazon Prime streaming for entertainment. The way I think about bookstore, even with the Kindle, having access to books, whether they're library books that you can get on the Kindle, all of those things that are Amazon related, Amazon oriented, life changing.
It really is, and I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Amazon for a number of reasons, but primarily because I worked for UPS for 9 years. And I remember when I started seeing the Amazon boxes. And just that volume growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. People clearly go to the store still, because when I'm in Target or Walmart, especially on the weekend, there's people.
People are there.
But I don't know what they're buying, because they're buying it all on Amazon now. It's just crazy, and it is absolutely life changing because, like you said, technology builds on technology, and I think Amazon has made the process so frictionless. That it becomes very, very easy just to transfer more and more of what you're doing there.
Absolutely.
Which can be a good thing or a bad thing, just depending on it. But it is. Even though I have a love-hate relationship with it, I use them all the time. Because there's nothing else like it out there.
That's right.
They've just become so big and are in so many different places.
And even a behemoth like Walmart just isn't able to compete.
No.
It's just. It's technology, and Amazon is a technology company, and it's certainly been revolutionary, life changing.
And you talked about the Kindle app. Like the Library of Alexandria had a fraction of what's of it. We have the accumulated knowledge of the world through the centuries in one place.
That's
it's
one
amazing.
place. It really is incredible.
So. All right. So that was the life-changing tech for 240-something guys.
Absolutely. We've seen a lot.
We've seen a lot, and it's neat. Because, like I said, technology builds on technology. More stuff's to come, I'm sure.
That's right.
We'll be looking back 10 years from now, going, "Wow, can you believe?"
I know. And there are other things that smart cars and electric cars, all sorts of technology.
Terrifies me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, so what did we get right? What did we leave off the list? What would have made your list that we didn't talk about?
That's right.
That I would love to know that. Because we have viewers of all ages.
Absolutely.
I've seen some people who've said what age group they are. And I'd be interested to see what some of those different age groups would say.
No doubt, no doubt. There will be different technologies that impacted you maybe more so than others.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So please leave those comments down below. Leave the video a thumbs up, and thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you guys next time.